every now and then, somebody actually wants to know the behind the curtain, behind the scenes backdrop as to how this came to be. How did you write a book together? And why would you write this book? And we'd love to give you a little bit of the behind the scenes process of how we wrote and what drove us to create this book. So why? Why did we do this?
I came to Mars Hill Graduate School in my 2001 Ford Focus, which is still outside.
Still outside.
I still have. It's still there. And I didn't know you. I didn't know who you were, even though you were a famous author at that point and had started this school. But I was drawn to this school because you guys were doing work basically saying you can't take anyone any further than you're willing to go yourself. So if you want to be a therapist, a pastor, to do anything, you have to do the work. And that was really important to me because I had been in ministries up to that point and found that I was getting myself into a lot of messes because I had a sense of where people needed to go in their stories or in their healing, but had no idea how my own story was intersecting with it. So that's why I came, and I saw you at orientation, and you were so compelling and also a little crazy, but there was something about the way you spoke about God, about redemption, and telling the truth about life. And so you weren't sugarcoating anything, but yet there was such an essence that God was bigger than all of that, and that there was hope. But hope came through dealing with your pain versus going around it.
Yeah.
And so much of the church that I'd grown up with was like, you're saved, good for you. Now you can kind of go on the top bridge. You don't have to actually deal with what happened. And I had this sense that there was a lot that had happened for me down here, but there was no one to guide me into those spaces. And so that's really, that's how I got to know you. And in the first class that I took from you, Faith, Hope, and Love, you gave a final. And I was sorting through all of my notes in that class, which were profound, but also there were a lot, and created something called the Matrix. And the Matrix basically took all of the underpinnings of your theories and then put them together in order to study for this final.
Order is a key word here.
Yes, yes. So I took that, and then I remember sitting in your office a couple of years later. Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah, like it was yesterday. and the reason is that no one has to question that I can be very scattered, or my mind tends to move in multiple directions simultaneously. And in one sheet of paper, there was not just order, but a kind of flourishing depth that came out of the material and the way that you brought it together. And that gift of being able to not just bring things together and make more sense, but actually see something grow from the dirt to become even more fruitful. It was breathtaking, and still one of those gifts of a lifetime, to be able to look at the material I had taught that in some sense had become your material, and where I was able to go, wow, that actually makes some sense.
Yeah, and you I don't know if you remember what you said, but you go, I teach that? Like, yeah.
I know some of the words, but not in the particular invitation. I think that's indeed where some of the categories of prophet, priest, and king, what we have talked about as, the widow, the stranger, and the orphan, some of that began to get much clearer from that beginning labor. And I think what we've done as we have taught together, co-created the Allender Center together, is to see that calling comes out of heartache, but heartache has to be healed in order for calling to actually grow in a way that not only benefits others, but actually benefits ourselves. Yeah. So I think the privilege of being able to write with you, given that, as a man, as a woman, as an older man, as a younger woman, with young children, with grandchildren. I mean, our different perspectives have been so important. And again, it isn't the first time, but I learned so much from you in your writing. So the privilege of being able to work and write with you has been almost one of the sweetest of a lifetime.
For me too. I didn't know how the process of writing with you would go, because we started an organization together, but really you were more reluctant about restarting another sector of an organization with the Allender Center.
Reluctant would be a very gracious word,
Yeah.
but yes.
And I was eager, because I hadn't started anything before, so I didn't understand that it would basically end up like trying to kill you. But so we were at very different perspectives at that point, where I was really pushing the project along of starting the Allender Center, and you were willing to, but you were rightfully skeptical of it. This project, I'd never written a book before, so I didn't know how that would be for me. You have written many books, and so let me just tell you that a lot of our engagements, either over text or email, would be like, hey, where's your chapter? How's it going? We have a deadline on Friday. Are you done yet? Can I see it? Like, where have you written? And it was so interesting because often that's reversed, where I'm the one kind of driving the projects and being like, okay, Dan, I need you here, and we need to do this. And then I was really in your camp writing this, and I started to realize how risky it was for you to do this with me, because you didn't actually know if I could write this. Like, I could have frozen and not been able to produce anything, and not actually been able, I mean, I've written some blogs, written a lot of proposals, so you can see that, and I teach this content all the time. But it was such a huge risk for you, I think, to do this book with me, given that you just didn't know how it was going to turn out. And there were definitely moments where I could feel your anxiety.
I won't deny it. I won't deny it. But the fact is, I've only written centrally with my best friend. And, when I write with Tremper, a relationship of 55 years allows you to be pretty clear with one another. And like almost any long-term marriage, I can finish sentences, he can finish sentences, and it requires an immense amount of trust to be able to create. And I don't know if you've done much writing, but the experience of writing is a very, at least for me, humbling, difficult. I mean, hours can be spent on 2 paragraphs that by the time you finish, you just go that it is better for the universe to hit delete. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know where it goes in the realm of the ether, but it's
With all
gone.
of our mismatched
it's
socks.
gone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's exactly right. Mismatched. Is that where they are?
Yeah, they all hang out together.
But I think that's what I knew about you, is that you would risk and that you would suffer the feedback. Mm-hmm. And, again, the play, my hope would be, even though in the book it clearly says Cathy's chapter, Dan's chapter, but the fact is you put time into my chapters, I put time into yours. So there is a clarity that there is one writer, but we collaborated sufficiently that there are times where there's sentences and somebody may say, that was a great sentence you wrote. And I'm like, I don't know if I wrote it. But it doesn't really matter, because it is the play of creation together that opens up the possibility for each person to find more of their own voice, and therefore to add to the duet in this case. So hard as it is to write, and especially in the period where we couldn't see each other outside of Zoom, COVID writing, I've never had to write in that kind of absence other than pixelated presence on a computer screen. I'm proud. I'm really proud of what we created.
I am too.
Yeah, and it was one of the things I was concerned about, is that I want this book to outlast COVID. And due to, you'll see our editors, Tracy and Mick, they did a brilliant job of helping us tell the story of our own experience, but not be so bound to nothing but COVID that it becomes dated. And may it be that COVID's dated, but no longer do we want to be bound to that, but using, in so many ways, the disruption of that period to be able to enter into the larger reality of how do we live with trauma? How do we live with the kind of heartache that these days and months and what feels like years have brought us to? So again, what we can invite you to is, this was hard wrought. We hope to be deeply honest, but far more transformative. It has been for me.
Yeah,
to
me
work with
too.
you.
And I think what I love about this book is that it really feels like sealing the last decade of our work together. And that feels really special because, you and I have worked on this material. The whole team has worked on this material. The Allender Center is really based on some of these core concepts. And it's been such a sweet gift to feel like, we can honor the decade of the Allender Center that we've done together in the culmination of a book that we get to hold in our hands. And so that's been a sweet gift. And again, to be able to start this center with you, and then also to write with you as my mentor, as my friend, is just such a profound privilege. So thank you.
Welcome and thank you. And we hope that your engagement with the book will be equally and even more so transformative.